Brian has a very chess player kind of mind. He's very specific, carefully crafted, carefully detailed work, and all the key elements, all the clues that are laid in, even just subliminally, are things I think he probably thought about weeks, months before he ever shot them. In terms of the museum sequence and in the whole Kate Miller thing, it is amazing in that sequence how much he does do with the couples that she sees. And again, it's all sexually related imagery or it's sort of family related imagery. The guy grabbing his girlfriend's butt, there's a blonde woman being hit on. There's this couple with a little girl in a family unit, which of course is the split that Kate is going through, because she's got this whole thing about, is she going to have an affair pulling away from her family? Every image in there has a meaning to her story. Also, every image of the painting she looks at, you know, the woman who looks back at her. There's the gorilla, which to me is a kind of very sexual image and a very kind of male, potent image. So even the paintings he picked have meaning. Kate also, through the whole process of seduction, loses a lot of the things that we think of as civilizing or covering, from her gloves to her panties to her wedding ring. I mean, a lot of things we associate with being proper, with being covered, with being safe, with a kind of more Victorian sexuality. All of them fall away from her as she's kind of finding her own sexuality. And then, of course, you know, the irony is she ends up getting killed having found it.
One of the things that Brian does best is take scenes that could be boring, that are just people sitting and talking, and make them very, very visually dynamic. And the sequence in the police station is fascinatingly complex because it's all about point of view, really, ultimately. And it's all about whose story are we telling, who's looking who's watching who's listening to who. So you've got the sound design element of hearing through my headphones some of the times, and sometimes being in the room with Dennis Franz and Michael Caine.
Do you know who it is? Some broad.
A woman. You have the split diopter shots, which is, you know, splits the focus. Literally, you're seeing two different things in focus at the same time. You know, and then you have the shots of Nancy Allen across the way. And that scene becomes ultimately very disturbing and very disorienting because you're never quite sure who's watching who's listening to whose scene it is, whose motives are what. Brian very intentionally never lets you get settled into a rhythm. And that makes you as an audience really work to kind of figure out, well, what am I looking at here, and what should I be looking at, and what am I missing something? One of the things that Brian does in the film that's kind of masterful and confusing in the best, most intentional sort of way is having Michael Caine as a woman and the character of the cop who's following, and having them both played by the same actress with minimal makeup differences. And even though you don't know that there's two characters, but the film is acting like there's two characters. Throughout the film, there are clues that are laid in this very kind of careful way. And again, done so subliminally that you're not aware of it, you just feel it, you just experience it. For example, the character of Bobby, Michael Caine's sort of alter ego, is outside the museum. Before you ever introduce the character, she's there, and you're not supposed to be aware she's there. You're just there enough that you just, somewhere your brain picks it up. After Angie Dickinson has slept with the guy who she meets in the museum, and she's going to put her bracelet back on, there's a focus rack where you can then see her ring sitting on the table, and just so you know that it's there and she's going to forget it. And then it goes away again. And it's very slight. You have to really look at it. You have to be watching the film in an analytical sort of way to see it.
Would you want to sleep with me?
Yes.
Then why don't you?
Anytime somebody makes a sexual advance to Michael Caine, there's always a moment where he looks at himself in a mirror. And it's done beautifully because it's always a little throwaway moment. It's not made a big deal of, so that again, on a first viewing, it's not like you go, what does that mean? Visually, the film has a big running motif of split personalities, split screens. It's why the use of the split diopters, which gives you two different focuses at the same time, is part of the whole construction. And of course, Brian took that a step further and did some literal split screens, and then sometimes within the split screens would have a split diopter within the split screen or a mirror within. So he would sometimes take it and actually you're watching four images at once. What I think it captures beautifully is the split in everybody's personality. I mean, everybody's got a split going on, and Brian really did a lot visually, I think, to underline that and to play with that with an audience's perception. One of the structural things that's interesting in the film is that it's a bookended film. It's bookended by showers as well as being bookended by sensuality. And you've got, Angie naked in the shower in a very vulnerable dream at the beginning. You've got Nancy naked in a shower in a very vulnerable dream in the end, kind of bringing the film full circle. Everything's got echoes of everything else. He's a genius of the use of camera, and to be around that, you can't help but be influenced by it. I'm very grateful for the time I had with him. I really learned a lot from him as a human being, as a director of actors, of camera. There was also just a real sense of focus and purpose that he has that I think is great.